That's when I knew. I knew in that moment. I thought, oh my God, this is the program working. I'm Jenna. This is Starve the Demon, Recovery by Any Means Necessary. Tonight, we'll be reading from the Narcotics Anonymous basic text, and it works how and why. We'll be talking about the spiritual principle of service. Step 12 is where we begin looking at spiritual awakening, carrying the message to another addict and practicing the principles we've learned in every part of our lives. That doesn't mean we finish all 12 steps and suddenly become perfect. It means working the steps begins to change the way we think, the way we behave, the way we treat people, and the way we show up in the world. And then we take what was freely given to us and make it available to somebody else. As always, I'll be reading from the books and sharing my own experience. I'm going to tell you what carrying the message means to me and what it actually looks like to practice these principles outside of a meeting. And because we're talking about spiritual awakening, I want to remind everybody that this is not about one particular religion. You may follow a religion, you may not. You may still be figuring out what you believe. Your understanding of a higher power and your spiritual experience are personal. What matters here is the change that begins to happen as a result of working the steps. Subscribe to the channel and share this with somebody who may need it. You can also visit starvethedemon.com for more recovery content, resources, merchandise, and you can buy me a coffee. All right, enough about me. Let's get into step 12. We are in the Narcotics Anonymous basic text, page 49. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. The spiritual experience that everybody's always talking about, that is a result of these steps. It is a ridiculous, unrealistic expectation to think that somebody's going to come in the rooms and right off the bat, they're going to be living their life as if they've worked all 12 steps. And when we say we practice these principles in all our affairs, we mean we practice the spiritual principles that we've been working on throughout the 12 steps. Honesty, trust, faith, brotherly love, perseverance, self-discipline, spirituality, and this one is service. We came to Narcotics Anonymous as the result of the wreckage of our past. The last thing we expected was an awakening of the spirit. We just wanted to stop hurting. The steps lead to an awakening of a spiritual nature. This awakening is evidenced by changes in our lives. These changes make us better able to live by spiritual principles and to carry our message of recovery and hope to the addict who still suffers. The message, however, is meaningless unless we live it. As we live it, our lives and actions give it more meaning than our words and literature ever could. The idea of a spiritual awakening takes many different forms in the different personalities that we find in the fellowship. However, all spiritual awakenings have some things in common. Common elements include an end to loneliness and a sense of direction in our lives. Many of us believe that a spiritual awakening is meaningless unless accompanied by an increase in peace of mind and a concern for others. In order to maintain peace of mind, we strive to live in the here and now. Those of us who have worked these steps to the best of our ability received many benefits. We believe that these benefits are a direct result of living the program. When we first begin to enjoy relief from our addiction, we run the risk of assuming control of our lives again. We forget the agony and pain that we have known. Our disease controlled our lives when we were using. It is ready and waiting to take over again. We quickly forget that all our past efforts at controlling our lives failed. By this time, most of us realize that the only way that we can keep what was given to us is by sharing this new gift of life with the still suffering addict. This is our best insurance against relapse to the torturous existence of using. We call it carrying the message, and we do it in a number of ways. This is a question that comes up. Carrying the message, some people will tell you this, means that you have to sponsor. Nowhere in this literature, in either one of these two books, is it going to say that you have to sponsor. We're about to get into all the different ways that you can carry the message. Not everybody is cut out for sponsor. Not everybody has the time to sponsor. If you can take somebody through the steps and the book and put their hand in the hand of God's, that's fabulous. But that is not the only way to carry the message. In the 12th step, we practice the spiritual principles of giving the NA message of recovery in order to keep it. Even a member with one day can carry the message that this program works. When we share with someone new, we may ask to be used as a spiritual instrument of our higher power. We don't set ourselves up as gods. We often ask for the help of another recovering addict when sharing with a new person. It is a privilege to respond to a cry for help. We who have been in the pits of despair feel fortunate to help others find recovery. We help new people learn the principles of Narcotics Anonymous. We try to make them feel welcome and help them learn what the program has to offer. We share our experience, strength, and hope. Whenever possible, we accompany newcomers to a meeting. The selfless service of this work is the very principle of step 12. We received our recovery from the God of our understanding. We now make ourselves available as His tool to share recovery with those who seek it. Most of us learn that we can only carry our message to someone who is asking for help. Sometimes the only message necessary to make the suffering addict reach out is the power of example. An addict may be suffering, but unwilling to ask for help. We can make ourselves available to these people so when they ask, someone will be there. Just being available, reaching out, giving your number out at meetings, just talking to people, say, hey, here's my number, give me a call. It is scary at first. It is scary to ask people for their number. It is scary to ask for help. When we give you our number, we want you to call. And there are some people in the rooms like, well, I don't give my number out. They got to come ask for my number. You know what? I think we forget. Some of us forget how hard that was and how hard that is. When you're at a meeting and they say, hey, if you're brand new or if it's just for your first NA meeting or if this is your first meeting here in this group, raise your hand. Pay attention to who's raising their hand. And then after the meeting, go slide them your number. Hey, listen, call me if you need to talk. Call me if you need a ride. Not everybody can. If you can, do. Learning to help others is a benefit of the Narcotics Anonymous program. Remarkably, working the 12 steps guide us from humiliation and despair to acting as instruments of our higher power. We are given the ability to help a fellow addict when no one else can. We see it happening among us every day. This miraculous turnabout is evidence of spiritual awakening. We share from our own personal experience what it has been like for us. The temptation to give advice is great, but when we do so, we lose the respect of newcomers. This clouds our message. A simple, honest message of recovery from addiction rings true. I've said it before. I don't carry the message of NA. I carry the message of recovery. Recovery is possible. Any addict can get recovery. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what I have done. The 12 steps and the spiritual principles are the same whether you're in AA or NA. So if you are not in Narcotics Anonymous, if you're in AA, this video is for you too. We attend meetings and make ourselves visible and available to serve the fellowship. We give freely and gratefully of our time, service, and what we have found here. The service we speak of in Narcotics Anonymous is the primary purpose of our groups. Service work is carrying the message to the addict who still suffers. The more eagerly we wait in and work, the richer our spiritual awakening will be. The first way that we carry the message speaks for itself. People see us on the street and remember us as devious, frightened loners. They notice the fear leaving our faces. They see us gratefully come alive. Once we find the NA way, boredom and complacency have no place in our life. By staying clean, we begin to practice spiritual principles such as hope, surrender, acceptance, honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, faith, tolerance, patience, humility, unconditional love, sharing, and caring. As our recovery progresses, spiritual principles touch every area of our lives because we simply try to live this program in the here and now. We find joy as we start to learn how to live by the principles of recovery. It is the joy of watching as a person 2 days clean says to a person with 1 day clean, An addict alone is in bad company. It is the joy of watching a person who was struggling to make it suddenly, in the middle of helping another addict to stay clean, become able to find the words needed to carry the message of recovery. We feel that our lives have become worthwhile. Spiritually refreshed, we are glad to be alive. When we were using, our lives become an exercise in survival. Realizing that the bottom line is staying clean, we can enjoy life. We like being clean and enjoy carrying the message of recovery to the addict who still suffers. Going to meetings really works. Practicing spiritual principles in our daily lives leads us to a new image of ourselves. Honesty, humility, and open-mindedness help us to treat our associates fairly. Our decisions become tempered with tolerance. We learn to respect ourselves. The lessons we learn in our recovery are sometimes bitter and painful. By helping others, we find the reward of self-respect as we are able to share these lessons with other members of Narcotics Anonymous. We cannot deny other addicts their pain, but we can carry the message of hope that was given to us by fellow addicts in recovery. We share the principles of recovery as they have worked in our lives. God helps us as we help each other. Life takes on a new meaning, a new joy, and a quality of being and feeling worthwhile. We become spiritually refreshed and are glad to be alive. One aspect of our spiritual awakening comes through the new understanding of our higher power that we develop by sharing another addict's recovery. Yes, we are a vision of hope. We are examples of the program working. The joy that we have in living clean is an attraction to the addict who still suffers. We do recover to live clean and happy lives. Welcome to NA. The steps do not end here. The steps are a new beginning. That is a lot to unpack, y'all, but we're going to do it. Years ago, my husband needed some pants for work. We went to a store, and while he was trying them on, the shop girl and I started talking. And I don't remember specifically how we got started, but the topic came up that I was in recovery and that I worked in treatment. And so she starts telling me about her brother-in-law who has a substance problem, and she's concerned for him. She's concerned for her sister who's married to him and their kids. I gave her my number. I said, listen, if and when he ever wants help, is ready for help, give me a call. I'll try and help you out. Like 2 years went by. And she calls me. Do you remember that? I remember. How's it going? She wanted to know my opinion about different treatment centers in the area and where her brother-in-law could go. He was ready. See, I planted that seed. I had that conversation with a random person in a store, and 2 years later, I was able to help her. That's carrying the message. It tells us in the literature, it is attraction rather than promotion. The best way that I carry the message is by living happy, joyous, and free. The greatest compliment that I get anymore is that I'm always in a good mood. I'm always smiling. I'm always seem happy. I don't freak out about things. That's a great compliment to me because that was not always the case. If you ask some people, they'll tell you I'm awesome, right? 8 years ago, the people that knew me would tell you I was a raging harpy bitch. And you know what? They're both right. I have a newfound freedom because I work the 12 steps, because I have a great relationship with my higher power, because I carry the message of recovery. I live in step 10, 11, and 12. Every single day, I carry the message of recovery to whoever I can as much as I can. This is why I started Starve the Demon channel, because I want to help the newcomer. I work in treatment. I'm a certified recovery coach. I sponsor. I go to meetings. That's what it is. I'm not saying that's who you got to be, but that's who I am. We're going to jump into It Works How and Why on page 113. In a sense, step 12 encompasses all the steps. We must make use of what we've learned in the previous 11 as we carry the message and practice the principle of recovery in all our affairs. Individually and collectively, each step has contributed to the extraordinary transformation which we know as spiritual awakening. Many of us have wondered how this spiritual awakening comes about. Does it happen all at once, or does it occur slowly over a long period of time? While there may be great variations within our experience about this awakening of the spirit, we all agree that it results from working the steps. Our awakening has been progressive, beginning with a spark of awareness in the first step. Before we admitted the truth about our addiction, we knew only the darkness of denial. But when we surrendered, acknowledging that we couldn't arrest our addiction or hope for a better life on our own, a ray of light broke through the darkness, beginning our spiritual awakening. Though each individual's experience of a spiritual awakening varies, some experiences are so common as to be almost universal. Humility is one of those common factors. We first began to experience humility when we opened our minds to the possibility that a power greater than ourselves existed. For some of us, this experience was so astounding that we received an almost physical jolt from the knowledge that we weren't alone in our struggle for recovery. Step 2 allowed us our first glimpse of hope. That hope had an immediate and powerful effect on our despairing spirit, providing us with a reason to go on. Our desire for something different prompted us to a deeper level of surrender in the third step. Not only did we admit that we couldn't control our addiction, we went on to recognize that our will and lives could be better left to the care of our higher power. Paradoxically, in this admission, we found our greatest strength. As we worked the third step, we began to understand that we could tap the limitless resource of our higher power for everything needed to heal us spiritually. This included the courage we knew we would need to work the fourth step. Many of us dreaded the process of self-appraisal called for in step 4, despite the gentle assurances of our fellow NA members that we would find spiritual rewards in the process. Though we were afraid, we went forward, somehow believing in the experience of other recovering addicts. Once our inventory was completed, we no longer needed convincing. In the process, we had experienced spiritual growth for ourselves. Our spirits were strengthened by our emerging integrity. The shaping of values, so essential to our character, was just one of the positive results we found in the fourth step. Unlike the admission we made in the first step, which was made in desperation, the admission we made in step 5 was voluntary. This complete disclosure of our innermost selves, made without reservation, resulted in a breakthrough in our ability to accept ourselves and trust others. Our sponsor's acceptance and our higher power's unconditional love made it possible for us to judge ourselves less harshly. We developed a little more humility with the awareness of the exact nature of our wrongs. We began to understand that humility and self-loathing are incompatible and can't exist at the same time. I want to touch on that a little bit. Humility is being right-sized. Not, I'm so great, not, I suck. When we think about somebody being egotistical, right? Me, my, I. What comes to mind generally is somebody that's very arrogant, thinks very highly of themselves. I am so great. Look what I could do. Look at me. That is no different than the person that says, I suck. I'm the worst. I have this thing wrong with me, that thing wrong with me, the other thing wrong with me. I'm just no good. There's no hope for me. That is still me, my, I. Okay. So it's still all ego, all about me, whether it's I'm the greatest or I suck beyond measure. So that's why it says humility, being right sized, knowing who you are, and self-loathing don't coexist. If all you can think about is how much you suck, all you can think about is you. And if all you're thinking about is you, that is very selfish and egotistical, which is pretty much the opposite of humility. With our awareness of the exact nature of our wrongs, our character defects, and the humility inherent in that awareness, our desire to change increased dramatically as we work step 6. Though we may have experienced some apprehension about surrendering our character defects, we overcame our fears by drawing on the trust and faith we had developed in a loving God. Trust and faith, two important elements of a spiritual awakening, made it possible for us to become entirely ready to allow a power greater than ourselves to work in our lives. Consciously asking the God of our understanding to help us in step 7, was an important development in the awakening of our spirit. That request was tangible evidence of how much we had changed spiritually. We want to feel special, right? And too many of us suffer from what I like to call look at me syndrome. Look at me, look at me, look at me, which is weird because we also want to isolate and don't look at me. We want you to look at us, but not see us. When we're in active addiction, it's look at me, but don't really see me. This was the point where many of us began to sense the enormous difference that our higher power could make in our lives. Because we had been asked for and been granted some freedom from having to act on our shortcomings, we finally began to grasp what the miracle of recovery offers us. Carried along by the promise of continued freedom in our lives, we proceeded in step 8 to make ourselves aware of what we had done to others in our active addiction. Again, we saw how the spiritual preparation of the previous steps made it possible for us to withstand the pain and remorse of listing the people we had harmed. Our willingness to make amends to them all brought us further away from the grip of self-obsession. Our search for recovery was no longer focused on what we could get out of it for ourselves. We saw beyond the confines of our own lives, and our efforts in recovery began to be more generous. We developed the ability to feel empathy for others. Once we had engaged in the process of making amends in the 9th step, we could see how it contributed to our spiritual growth. Our humility was enhanced by our newfound appreciation for others' feelings. Our self-esteem grew along with our increased capacity to forgive both ourselves and others. We were able to give of ourselves. Most of all, we gained freedom. Freedom to live in the present and feel that we belonged in the world. The discipline we practiced in the 10th step ensured that we continued to breathe new life into our awakening spirits. We practiced ongoing adherence to our newfound values, thereby strengthening their importance in our lives. We saw that by making our spiritual development our primary focus, other aspects of our lives would progress naturally as they were meant to all along. Focusing our attention on our spiritual development brought us to the 11th step. We had already become increasingly conscious of a powerful presence operating in our lives, a power that could restore our sanity and remove our shortcomings. In order to cultivate this awakening, we have found it essential to express our gratitude and practice the principles of recovery in every area of our lives. However, this isn't something we do only to ensure that our own recovery continues. Narcotics Anonymous is not a selfish program. In fact, the spirit of the 12th step is grounded in the principle of selfless service. Upholding this principle in our efforts to carry the message is of the utmost importance, both to our spiritual state and to those to whom we are trying to carry the message. Step 12 has a paradoxical aspect in that the more we help others, the more we help ourselves. For instance, if we find ourselves troubled and our faith wavering, there are very few actions that can have an immediate uplifting effect on us as helping a newcomer. One small act of generosity can work wonders. Our self-absorption diminishes, and we end up with a better perspective on what previously seemed like overwhelming problem. Every time we tell someone else that Narcotics Anonymous works, we reinforce our belief in the program. When being of service in Narcotics Anonymous, many of us have been chosen to give back the program in the same way we were helped when new. Some of us whose first contact with NA was through the area phone line have found it rewarding to serve on the phone line ourselves. Others have been drawn to hospitals and institutions service work because we first heard the message of NA in a jail or hospital. Whatever form of service we choose to be involved in, we do so with our primary purpose of carrying the message in mind. Now we must ask ourselves, just what is the message we are trying to carry? Is it that we never have to use drugs again? Is it that through recovery, we cease being likely candidates for jails, institutions, and an early death? Is it the hope that an addict, any addict, can recover from the disease of addiction? Well, it's all of this and more. The message we carry is that by practicing the principles contained within the 12 steps, we have had a spiritual awakening. Whatever that means for each one of us is the message we carry to those seeking recovery. I cannot tell you what to do. I can only tell you what I have done, what has worked for me. I've made a lot of mistakes. My recovery hasn't been perfect, but it's been great. And the results of it are great. And if you want to know, I'll tell you all about it. The ways in which we carry the message are as varied as our members. There are, however, some basic guidelines that we as a fellowship have found to be helpful. First and foremost, we share our experience, strength, and hope. This means that we share our experience, not the theories we have heard from other sources. This also means that we share our own experience, not someone else's. It is not our job to tell someone seeking recovery where to work, who to live with, how to raise their children, or anything else outside the realm of our experience with recovery. Someone we are trying to help may have problems in these areas. We can help best by not managing that person's life, but by sharing our own experience in those areas. Developing a personal style for carrying the message rests on a simple requirement. We must be ourselves. We each have a special one-of-a-kind personality that is sure to be an attraction to many. Some of us have a sparkling sense of humor, which may reach someone in despair. Some of us are especially warm and compassionate, able to reach an addict who has rarely been the recipient of kindness. Some of us have a remarkable talent for telling the truth in no uncertain terms, to an addict literally dying to hear it. Some of us are a valuable asset on any service committee, while others do better working one-on-one with a suffering addict. Whatever our own personality makeup, we could be assured that when we sincerely try to carry the message, we could reach the addict seeking recovery. Yet there are limits to what we can do to help another addict. We cannot force anyone to stop using. We cannot give someone the results of working the steps, nor can we grow for them. We cannot magically remove someone's loneliness or pain. Not only are we powerless over our own addiction, we are powerless over everyone else's. We can only carry the message. We cannot determine who will receive it. We plant the seeds. We don't get to know where they grow. We are here to do God's work, not his job. We do the next right thing. We leave the results up to God. And that's all we can do. We learned in steps 1 and 3 that we don't have power over anything or anybody. I don't have that kind of control. I can't make you happy. I can't make you mad. I can't make you use. I can't make you be clean. And I promise you, I'm going to stay sober no matter what you do. It is absolutely none of our business to decide who is ready to hear the message of recovery and who is not. Oh, doesn't that drive you nuts when somebody is struggling or somebody relapses and the answer is they're just not ready? You could be ready and willing and wanting to and still struggling. We don't give up on folks because they're struggling. You know, I love a good cliche, but there are certain phrases that when I tell you, they get my Irish up. And one of them is, you're not ready. You don't know. And then you'll have somebody else that seems like they're checking all the boxes and then goes out and just burns their whole life all to the ground. You can't tell and you don't know. You carry the message of recovery and you practice these principles in all your affairs. You don't have any control over if somebody else practices them or not. It's not your problem. It falls in that great big category called not my problem. Most things are in that category. Many of us have formed such a judgment about an addict's desire for recovery and have been mistaken. Multiple relapses do not necessarily signify a lack of interest in recovery, nor does the model newcomer demonstrate without a doubt a certainty of making it. It is our purpose and our privilege to share the message of recovery unconditionally with anyone expressing a desire to receive it. The principle of unconditional love is expressed in our attitude. Anyone who reaches out for help is entitled to our compassion, our attention, and our unconditional acceptance. Any addict, regardless of clean time, should be able to pour out his or her pain in an atmosphere free of judgment. Most of us have found that we are able to feel great empathy for those who suffer from our disease precisely because it is our disease. Our empathy isn't abstract, nor is our understanding. Instead, it is born in shared experience. We greet each other with the recognition reserved for survivors of the same nearly fatal catastrophe. This shared experience, more than anything else, contributes to the atmosphere of unconditional love in our meetings. I've been hearing it said a lot lately. Well, if the 12 steps work, why are you still going to meetings 20 years later? I will tell you why. Because that person that's got all that time and is living happy, joyous, and free, they're not going to that meeting for themselves. They're going to that meeting to help the newcomer, to offer their experience, strength, and hope, and to carry the message of recovery. It's part of the 12th step. Helping others is perhaps the highest aspiration of the human heart and something we have been entrusted with as a result of a higher power working in our lives. We would do well to remember to ask the God of our understanding to continue working through us in our efforts to carry the message. Diligently practicing the principles of recovery will ensure that the connection between ourselves and our higher power remains open and that our service to others is firmly rooted in spirituality. Spirituality becomes a way of life for us as we live by the principles of recovery. The example of a life lived according to these principles is potentially the most powerful message we can carry. We don't need to wait until we're on the second step to practice the principle of open-mindedness. Courage and honesty have a place in our lives even when we aren't writing an inventory. Humility is always a desirable state, whether we are asking the God of our understanding to remove our shortcomings, conducting business with a coworker, or talking to a friend. To practice the principles of recovery in all our affairs is what we strive for, both in and out of meetings. No matter who is involved, no matter how difficult it may seem, we make the principles of recovery the guides by which we live. Only through the practice of these principles in our daily life can we hope to achieve the spiritual growth necessary to maintain our reprieve from the disease of addiction. Though this may seem a lofty goal, we have found it attainable. Our gratitude for the gift of recovery becomes the underlying force in all we do, motivating us and weaving its way through our lives and the lives of those around us. Even in silence, the voice of our gratitude does not go unheard. It speaks most clearly as we walk the path of recovery, selflessly giving to those we meet along the way. We venture forth on our spiritual journey, our spirits awakened, and our horizons expanded. The quintessential spirit that lies inside each one of us, the spark of life that was almost extinguished by our disease, has been renewed through working the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. It is on the path paved with these steps that our future journey begins. I wanted to bring one more thing up. So I will tell you how I first recognized that the 12 steps were working for me. It was not yet a year clean. I'm at a turning light and the lady behind me bumper kisses me. She didn't slam into me, but she knocked into me. I look up and I'm like, what the hell was that? So I'm walking to the back of the car to look and see if there's damage. And this chick, phone in hand, jumps out of the car. And she's like, oh, don't start complaining. I'm sorry. Did I hit your car? No. You hit my car. But instead of dragging her, I thought about it. You know what? I'm on my way to work. I'm looking at this piece of crap monster I'm driving. You couldn't spot one dent from that other scratch. And I was on federal probation at the time. So all these thoughts are going through my head. It's not worth it to me to have to deal with the cops. And I'm probably going to be late to work. And for what? 0 damage to my car? So my problem in this moment is her attitude. So I say to her, listen, you hit me. Don't be coming out of your car with some attitude at me. But that was it. I didn't take it any further. I didn't drag her. I didn't end up going to jail. Get in the car and I said a prayer. Do you know, at the very next light, she's still behind me. She gets out of her car. She starts walking up to my window. She apologized to me. She said, you know what? You're right. And I'm sorry. And I said, okay, I forgive you. Get out of the road before you get hit. And I went ahead to work. And then I called my sponsor. That's when I knew. I knew in that moment. I thought, oh my God, this is the program working. Because prior to that, I would have dragged a bitch. I would not have hesitated. How dare you? If she'd have hit me and then come out of her car with an attitude, we'd have been fighting. I'd have been winning. We'd have both went to jail and I'd have continued to beat her ass on every set that I could find her. That is the horrible person that I used to be. I wouldn't have cared about losing my job. I wouldn't have cared about nothing, but it would have been super important to me to be right and to choose violence. I didn't do that. I kept my spiritual principles in mind. I prayed. I paused during agitation. Like they always say, live and let live. I let her live, and I was just going to go about my day. And what happened? She came and apologized to me. She went through whatever she went through in her own head between those lights and came up and said, you know what, you're right and I'm sorry. Great. She gave me the opportunity to practice forgiveness. Yay. That never would have happened before I started working steps. And there have been a million instances since then. I actually had the thought run through my head, oh my God, this is the program working. That's why I'm able to do this. I'm going to not even be late to work this morning. So that's amazing. The change is the evidence. Like I was saying in the beginning of this, I get complimented on just my basic attitude that I'm like always in a good mood and I take things in stride. And even if I do get ruffled, it's only for a minute and then I keep it pushing. That is evidence of how the program works in my life. So I guess that's it. Thank you to everybody. Please like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow the Facebook page, and share this with somebody in recovery or somebody who loves an addict. You can find more recovery content, Starve the Demon merchandise at starvethedemon.com. Remember, the addiction demon feeds on fear, anger, resentment, shame, and isolation. We starve it with honesty, connection, spiritual principles, service, and recovery by any means necessary. Love everybody. Let God sort them out. Keep coming back. We're going to keep coming back.